She found me standing near the back corner of the venue, the one spot in the room where the noise was slightly less aggressive, and she leaned close enough that I could hear her clearly over the music and said, quietly, without preamble, without the small talk the evening had been built for, "You still owe me that date." I had been thinking, approximately 3 seconds before that, about whether the Knaps were worth the drive home. What I was thinking after is harder to describe. My name is Daniel Voss. I am 34 years old. I restore and appraise antique maps, the kind of work that requires patience, a tolerance for solitude, and an unusually high tolerance for people asking at dinner parties whether that is a real job. It is. The solitude suits me. I have a flat above a dry cleaner on a quiet street, a subscription to a coffee roaster I have never canceled, and the sort of life that functions well but does not feel, on most days, particularly urgent. I had considered not attending the reunion. I had told myself this 3 times over a period of 2 months, and then I had paid the ticket fee and blocked out the date and driven 40 minutes in light rain to stand in a refurbished function room decorated with photographs of people I mostly remembered as slightly worse versions of themselves. Her name was Cara Malone. She had been in my year. She would be 34 now, though she moved through the room like someone who had never bothered to negotiate with time. She had dark hair she wore shorter than I remembered it, and she dressed like a person who had decided at some precise and irreversible moment that she would no longer dress for other people's comfort. She worked in structural engineering. I had read this on the event page without examining too closely why I had looked. We had been close once. Close is an imprecise word for what we were. In the last 2 years of school, Cara and I had been the kind of friends who existed in the space between something and nothing, shared revision sessions that ran 3 hours past the revision, arguments about films neither of us had fully watched, messages sent too late at night that neither of us addressed directly the following morning. We had a shorthand built from proximity and shared timing, and the particular chemistry of 2 people who found each other interesting enough to keep finding excuses to be near each other. She carried, in those years, a paperback in every bag, always the same battered one she was currently reading, its spine cracked in 5 places, and one corner folded back as a permanent page mark. She lost the bookmark constantly and refused to buy another. I used to leave one in her bag when she wasn't watching. I never said I had done it. I do not think she knew. I have carried that particular thing around for 16 years, without mentioning it to anyone. The existing dynamic was this. I had been going to ask her out the summer after final exams, and the summer after final exams arrived and she left for a placement abroad before I found the exact right arrangement of words. And by the time she returned, I was in another city, and the moment had been filed away under the category of things that had simply not happened. We were not in contact. There had been no falling out. We had simply been carried in different directions, the way people are when they are young enough to assume there will always be more time. I do not know what she had told herself about it. I had not asked. I had not had the occasion to ask, until now. The reunion had been underway for approximately 40 minutes when I noticed her. She was talking to someone near the bar, composed, attentive, performing the light social engagement that the evening demanded, and I watched her for just a moment too long before I looked back at my drink. It smelled of old wood and furniture wax in the corridor beyond the main room, the particular smell of old buildings that have been refurbished just enough to deny what they are. I had gone out there to check my phone and to breathe air that was not composed largely of other people's nostalgia. She appeared in the corridor 11 minutes later. She was carrying a glass of water, not wine, which I noted because she had never drunk much, and apparently still didn't. And she moved into the corridor with the particular energy of a person who was also done with the main room for a while. She stopped when she saw me, not in alarm. In the particular way of a person who has spotted the exact thing they had been considering looking for. "I had a feeling you'd be hiding," she said. "I'm not hiding. I'm having a strategic moment of quiet." She looked at me with an expression I remembered well, which was the expression of a person deciding whether to let something go or pursue it. She let it go. She came to stand a few feet away, leaning against the wall with her shoulder. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. "I wasn't sure either," I said. "Right up until the moment I arrived. How long have you been here?" "An hour. I'm already at the stage where I'm remembering why I didn't keep in touch with most of these people." That landed somewhere I hadn't prepared for. There was something specific about the way she said it. Not unkind, just honest. And I recognized it as the version of her that had always existed under the social surface. The one that said the accurate thing rather than the comfortable one. "You kept in touch with some of them?" I asked. "Not you," she said. And then she looked at her water, and there was something in the quality of that pause that I could not immediately categorize. I am not a person who handles silences badly. I stayed in mine and waited. "That was pointed," she said eventually, without looking up. "Was it meant to be?" She looked at me then. She had the kind of directness that had always required you to either meet it or look away. And I had always been better at meeting it than she probably expected. "I don't know," she said, which was, for Cara Malone, an unusual level of uncertainty to volunteer. The music from the main room bled through the walls, something from the year we had taken exams, which felt deliberately arranged by the universe to be maximally inconvenient. I noticed, in the same moment, that she was turning her glass around in her hand the way she used to turn a pen during revision when she was thinking about something she hadn't decided to say yet. "Are you still in the city?" I asked. "Just moved back, actually, 8 months ago." 8 months. I had not known this. I filed it without comment. "I heard you do something with old maps," she said. "I restore them. Yes, that's a real job?" "Everyone asks that." She smiled. "The real one, not the one she performed at parties, which was broader and slightly less specific, but the one that arrived before she decided whether to let it. It was a small smile, and it was quick, and then it was gone, and I had the familiar experience of feeling like I'd caught something I hadn't been fast enough to hold on to. "It suits you," she said, actually, someone meticulous who likes things that are old and valuable and underestimated. I did not know what to do with that sentence, so I did what I usually do, which is respond to the part of it that requires the least admission. Most of them are maps of coastlines that no longer look like what they show. Exploration-era cartography. The world kept changing, and the maps didn't. She looked at me steadily. "That's a very specific thing to find interesting." "It's honest work," I said. "The map doesn't apologize for being behind. It just shows you where someone thought they were." The corridor went quiet in the way corridors do when the conversation in them has just said something slightly larger than either person intended. "I'm going to get another drink," she said. "Come back in with me." I did. I had been telling myself, for approximately the next 45 minutes, that I was fine, and that the evening was fine, and that there was nothing to do with the information that Cara Malone had moved back to the city 8 months ago, except nothing. This is not, as arguments go, a particularly good one. I am aware of that. My capacity for self-deception has always been professionally grade. I have had years to develop it, and I have done so with commitment. The evidence was not especially subtle once I allowed myself to look at it directly. She had come to find me in the corridor. Not a coincidence. She had said herself she had a feeling I'd be there, which meant she had been paying enough attention to my location in the room to predict where I would go when I left it. She had told me about the move back to the city without being asked. She had used the phrase "not you" in response to a question about keeping in touch, and then paused, and then called it pointed, and then not quite explained what she meant. I had known Kara Malone for the better part of 6 years, across a period of 2 years of genuine closeness and several years of the kind of low-grade awareness that follows a person who mattered and then wasn't there anymore. She did not say things she didn't mean. She simply sometimes chose not to say the things she did. There was a woman from our year group, Jenny, who had been on the school newspaper with Kara, who found me near the edge of the room around the time I had refilled my drink for the 3rd time. She was warm and direct in the manner of people who were warm and direct at 17 and have simply continued. We talked for a few minutes. She mentioned she had seen Kara. I said something measured. Jenny gave me a look I was not quite prepared for, which was the look of someone assembling context from multiple pieces of information she had not shared with me. "She talks about you sometimes," Jenny said, as if this were a small and ordinary thing. "I see her occasionally. We're in the same yoga class, of all things." "She mentions you." I kept my expression level. "She mentions me. She used to, anyway, before she moved back." Jenny paused. I always assumed there was something there that had just not quite happened. "I'm probably wrong." "You might not be," I said, which was more than I had intended to give, and Jenny nodded with the satisfaction of a person who had confirmed something they'd suspected. I am not certain what that said about how visible I had apparently been. After Jenny moved away, I stood for a moment and looked across the room at Kara, who was talking to someone else now and not looking in my direction, and I thought about coastlines that had changed since the map was made. The geography was the same. The name on the map was the same. The thing the map was trying to describe had simply moved. I decided to stop pretending I was waiting for nothing. I found her near the photograph wall, the one decorated with printed images from our school years, which the committee had assembled with more thoroughness than anyone had prepared for. She was looking at one in particular. I came to stand beside her and looked at what she was looking at. It was a photograph from a revision session taken in the school library during some period I couldn't precisely date. She was looking at a book. I was looking, clearly and without ambiguity, at her. The room was warm. I could hear the music from the far end. "Someone had good timing," I said, meaning the camera. "Yes," she said. "They did." We stayed beside the photograph for a moment that was slightly too long for casual observation. "There's a corner near the back," she said. "On the right side. Less noise." "You were standing there earlier." "I know," I said. "I was there." "Walk back with me." We did. The corner was quieter. The bass from the speakers was present but manageable. She stood with her back to the wall and held her water glass with both hands in the way she had always held things she was thinking over. The silence between us was not uncomfortable. It was the particular kind of silence that is actually very loud. 16 years, she said. "Yes, that's a long time to owe someone a date." I went still, not visibly, or I hope not visibly, but inwardly still, in the way that happens when something you were not quite expecting arrives with a specific weight of something you have been thinking about for a long time. She was looking at me steadily, the way she always had. Her composure was present, but it had small breaks in it, a tightness around the particular quality of her breathing, a stillness in her hands that was slightly too careful. "I owed you a date?" I said. "You nearly asked me," she said. "The summer after finals, I could tell. You got very close and then I left before you quite got there. I always thought you would eventually." She paused. "You didn't." The air in the room had changed. Or possibly I had simply stopped being able to pretend it hadn't. You could have asked me, I said. Carefully, I know, she said. I'm asking now. I looked at her for a moment. The music was doing something soft and entirely inappropriate about 30 feet away. Her eyes were steady and slightly too serious for the occasion, and I recognized this as the version of her that appeared when she had stopped managing things and started simply being in them. You don't have to finish that, I said. We can go back to whatever this was. I won't mention it. She looked at me the way she had always looked at me when I said something she was deciding whether to address or set aside. She chose, this time, to address it. I moved back 8 months ago, she said. I had reasons that were work-related and reasons that were not. I kept not mentioning the reasons that were not work-related, even to myself. I'm done not mentioning them. Her hands had gone entirely still around the glass. She looked like a person who had just said the thing she'd been translating for a long time and was waiting to see if it translated correctly on the other side. I set down my drink. I used to leave bookmarks in your bag, I said, in 6th form. You kept losing them. I put them back without telling you. You thought you were finding them. Something happened in her expression that I did not quite have the language for. She looked at me and went slightly quiet in a way that was different from her usual quiet. I know, she said. I knew by the 3rd one. I had not expected that. You knew, I said. The 3rd one had a little piece of paper folded into it, she said. A map. One of the coastline ones. You'd drawn it by hand. I still have it. The room was the same. I was not. Every version of a decision I've revisited in the last 16 years, I said, you were the thing I kept coming back to. Not in a dramatic way, just in the way where you'd become the benchmark I didn't advertise. I paused. I stopped telling myself it was irrelevant about 4 years ago. I just ran out of a convincing argument. She laughed once, short and quiet and real, and it came out slightly uneven. Her eyes were a little bright. She was not performing any of this. A date, she said. Just to start. Just to start, I said. I reached out and took her hand, and she let me. And we stood in the corner of a function room decorated with photographs of other people's memories and held on to something we had both been carefully carrying for a very long time. Someone's phone alarm went off 3 feet away. A man scrambling to silence it while apologizing to his wife. And Kara looked at them and then looked back at me and smiled the specific smile I had first cataloged in a school library at the age of 17. That's on the universe, I said. The universe has timing, she said. 6 weeks later, the date was a Tuesday evening at a restaurant neither of us had chosen for any reason, except that it was equidistant from both our flats, which she pointed out over the starter, and I pointed out was not a romantic framing, and she said she was an engineer, and romance was my department. We stayed until they turned the chairs up around us. By the following spring, her paperback was on my shelf. The current one had a bookmark in it, a proper one, purchased, which she claimed to have chosen herself but which had a particular fold in the corner that suggested it had come from a map. She did not mention this. I did not mention this. This is apparently the kind of people we are. 2 years on, when people ask how it started, she tells it as a story about a reunion and a debt and good timing. She leaves out the bookmarks. I leave out Jenny. We have agreed, without ever formally agreeing, that some parts of the story belong to the 2 people who were in it and not to the telling of it. She still corrects my grammar. I still overestimate how long I can go without coffee. Nothing between us has changed. Everything about what it is has. It was not new. It had probably always been exactly this.